It was very hard for me to leave that washroom without giving him a tip. It was impossible. Eh? If I do these washrooms here in Kampala, that is what I mean. You do your work, but you do a little more. It costs you nothing. But you stand. Yeah. I don't know how much in tips he makes at Oliver Tambo International Airport, but I believe that he makes more money than the Ugandan cleaner in the KCCA toilets. That is forgiven. How do you maximize the gift that God has given you in practice? You have answered your own question. First of all, you know what your gift is. And then you do what? Practice it. It is as simple as that. If you have a gift and you sit on it, how do you expect it to bless you? How do you expect it to bless you? I suspect that most people don't know what their gifts are. That's why they don't practice them. And I think you need, that's why I said, who am I? When you know that, then you know what your gifts are. Then you start to practice. The more you practice it, the better you become at. Better you become. If you're a preacher, the more you do that, the more you become like Pastor Sesang. You see? If you're a preacher and you don't preach, the less you preach, the less people know about your message. So I think that one is also simple. What have you done about corruption in the judiciary? Wrong question. Wrong? Because those are the sort of questions that we always get. You see? If you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. The correct question is, what have we done about corruption in the judiciary? It is a corporate effort. It is not Justice Kiriawire's what? Effort. I don't give judges bribes. Who gives them bribes? And who are they? What should I do about you? Let us learn to ask the right questions. Because sometimes we ask what the Englishman calls rhetorical questions. Because you want me to say, I have done nothing about it. That's the answer you want to get from me. I have done a lot, by the way. But the question is, who is going to walk with me that journey? Are you part of it? Let us ask ourselves, as a nation, what are we doing about corruption in the Ugandan judiciary? Actually, that's even the wrong question. The question is, what are we doing about corruption in our country? That is the correct. Do we have an answer to that? Let us discuss. Because when you sort out that one, you have sorted out everything. And I talked a little bit about it. You know, sometimes you have to be careful how you give your presentation. You don't know who is recording. I said that you have to be very careful about how you do your stewardship. That Uganda is a country that is increasingly one of instant coffee. If you heard, you heard. If you didn't hear, may God open your ears. We must move away from instant coffee economy, instant coffee mindset. If We must work if we are to eat. That's what the Bible says. You do not steal in order to eat. You do not deprive people of their property in order to eat. The Bible says you work. A calling and a job. A job is the one you look for. Okay? You look for what? A job. A calling is one that looks for you. A calling is one which looks for you. It is something that comes in your spirit. And you feel that, yes, I need to stand out and look after children who have no fathers and mothers. That is a calling. You know, and the more you get good at it, the better you become. I was recently, a team of Ugandans went to the UK, all right, and participated in Britain Has Talent. Did you listen to that young man who looked after those children? He had many other things that he could have done. But he chose to look after those young children, okay? And he was able to raise the money to take them to London. Then Ugandans woke up when they started winning. And said, those are our people. Jamani. Is that how we are going to grow this country? We stand up because they have themselves stood up. The newspapers were up. Who are the children? Where were they raised? Where do they? They were here. But until you saw them on BBC, that is when you woke up that those are our people. That man is running his calling. A job, you go and get a salary at the end of the month. A calling is more likely the place where you make transformation. You can transform at the job. But if you want true transformation, it is when you pursue your what? Calling. So that is the difference. You didn't talk much about family. No, I did. Not as much as about perseverance and character, because if you wanted me to take, I can talk a whole thing about what? Family. But I did mention that it is one of those challenging what? Areas. You know, it is not easy to be the kind of area that I am in, and you're a full-time what? Father. But I said that whenever I have an opportunity to be in my children's life, I am what? I am there. So I don't know if you want to, if the question was, you said you have not, yet I did. You said talk more about it, then that is a different what? That's a different what? That's a different question. Yeah? And I told you that no matter what you do, you must remember that you must play a role in your what? Family. Yeah? You see, and I think in terms of this presence here, I think Pastor Sesanga did a lot more I could what? Possibly speak about in terms of what men should be doing in their what? In their families. I will not compete with that good lesson. For me, it was also a lesson for me. Yeah? We share, isn't it? Yeah? Sharing is what? Yeah. Now, how do you keep healthy in this stress? Thank you. He's trying to say that you look healthy. You know, the most important thing is you must be at peace with yourself. There are people who are not at peace with themselves. You see them, but they are running war inside. Huh? You must be peaceful. I was told by my doctor that one of the greatest causes of problems, health problems, is stress. It is the number one cause of things like cancer, for example. So you must learn to live a peaceful life. And I've also told you, even Pastor Sesang, I keep referring to him because I listened. He also ministered to me when I was here. You must be in love with your neighbor. Diversity, adversity, stress, and trauma normally arises because you're interacting with the world. You see? That is the source of what? Stress. If you stress yourself, I don't know if there's a person who just sits there and starts stressing themselves. But many people, I walk, I pray I'm not like one of those because I don't want to put anybody down. But I see people walking on the streets and they are talking to themselves and they are pointing fingers. They are turning them around. And you're looking, who is there? You know, it starts from inside. When it grows, it goes on to the outside. You need to catch it before it reaches that what? That level. Eat well. Exercise. Meditate. Read the Bible. Take mentorship. Do I have to tell you these things? I don't think so. You know them. You know, the other day I was at a wedding and I was choosing my portions of food. When I reached the exit point, they said, "Hey, Judge, you have put little food." I said, "No, this is enough." They said, "No, you should add what? More." And I was trying to politely say that I am what? I am fine. And that's one of the reasons why, for me, even though some people want to call me like a VIP, I never allow anybody to go and collect my food. I go and collect my food myself. Because then they'll go and feel the mountain. Then you're reminded of Chinua Achebe, and things fall apart. You do that every day for 365 days, what? Yeah. And tell me whether you remain healthy. These things you what? You know. The economy of Uganda and Singapore. There is no magic what? About it. I am just giving you something to what? To think about. You can choose any other country. I just happen to like Singapore because I have been there. I have seen for myself. And I know they don't have what we have. Is it a question of the government? Or is it a question of the what? Of the people. Okay. Pastor, let us go into definitions. Because one of the things when you want to do transformation, and Pastor, let us leave that question here. Are we asking the right questions in order to get the correct answers? What is government? When we were in school, what did they tell us government is? Government is government of the people, by the people. So is it government or is it the people? The question is it the government? Or is it the what? It is both. Because the government is the people. Eh? This business of saba government etuyambe, who are you talking to? It is not an animal. It is not a person who walks in front of you and say, let me put a roadblock and stop government and say, government. Eh? Eh? No, it is you. It is me. We are the government. Who does the voting? Huh? I'm looking around. Pastor has said Chireke. Chirese, I'm a good boy. Wrangles. You see, one of the, Pastor, I really thank you and the Full Gospel Fraternity for giving me the books. I promise you, I will what? I will read them. It is said that if you want to hide something from a Ugandan, where do you do it? You put it in a what? For me, I read. That's how. That's how I have got where I am. Where I am. I pray that God gives you the gift of what? Reading. It is so important. Because the East African Court of Justice has a website. All right? Please go there and read. It is free. You just need a data. And you can what? And read. And you know that a case was filed against the Republic of Rwanda for closing the border with Uganda. And the East African Court of Justice found that the closure of the border by the government of Rwanda, okay, against the government of Uganda violated the Treaty of the East African Community. See, the East African Court of Justice does not have a police force. It is like the International Court of Justice. Yeah? It does not have a what? Yeah? It does not have an army. Yeah? It does not have what? An army. But it does have the duty to interpret actions in East Africa to be in line with the treaty. And not think that opening that border was just somebody walking there and saying what? Open. There was pressure. Thank you. There was already pressure. I'm not saying that all the pressure came from the East African Court of Justice, but it was one level of what? Pressure. So yes, we have, as the East African Court of Justice, have said that it violates the what? The treaty. Because each of our governments has undertaken that we shall cede some of our sovereignty to the East African community, so that we remain as one people, which we historically were. You know, historically, there were no borders, correct? In fact, today, I think more people cross our borders without passports and documents than people who do so. There's a time when in Uganda, we had a family called the Aworis. Is it Awori or Awori? Awori. Same father, same mother. They come from the border district of Busia. That father was a reverend, by the way. Yeah, he was a reverend. Now the reverend in his wisdom said, you children, you go this side and go to primary school in what? In Kenya. You go to Uganda. And then what happened? A miracle. This one who went to Uganda, he became an Olympic champion, he started UTV, he became a minister, everything. They called him what? Aggrey Awori. His brother who went to study on the Kenyan side went on to become what? Vice President of what? Of Kenya. Huh? That is how we are. Huh? That's how we are. That's how we are supposed to be. Now imagine, huh? If Aggrey was still minister in Uganda and Moody was still vice president in Kenya, and they are having a meeting in London to determine who owns Mijingo Island. Huh? You must transform from these sort of things. The English will be very happy to mediate it. Eh? And we will be happy to give these people tickets to go to represent our country. But I wonder what the Muzungu will be thinking as he looks here. He says, hey, brother, how is mommy? Mommy is okay, doing well. Then this one goes to the other side of the table, and the other one goes to the other side of the table and says, Mijingo is ours. And the other one says, the Mijingo is for us. Then the Muzungu is saying about who is claiming the mother. These are contradictions of history. We should not place too much what? Too much emphasis on them. And that's what the court was saying. These borders, some of our great-grandfathers were alive when those borders did not what? Exist. So for us to put armies, to refuse people from crossing them, and say for you Rwandan, for you Ugandan, it is what is pulling us down. I went to Europe, I got a Schengen visa. Huh? You've heard of it? A Schengen visa. I just crossed. I was based in Sweden. I was on training. And the trainers said, oh, we're going to go to no, I think it's Luxembourg, where the European Court of Human Rights is in France. And so we'll go at 8 and we'll be back by 9 in the evening. I said, you're joking. Huh? I said, you're what? You're joking. Yeah, let us pack a few bags and, because for me to cross 3 countries in Africa, to cross 3 borders in Africa. No, actually there were 4. Because we were in Sweden, okay? We had to drive and cross the border into Denmark, Copenhagen, because we were in Lund. It is nearer to go to Copenhagen from Lund, to get a plane, to go to the Netherlands, get another plane to go to what? France. Okay. Attend a court hearing, learn how it is done, and go back to sleep in what? In Sweden. I told the guy, it's not possible. He said, but don't you have a Schengen visa? I said, yes, I have. Say, well, you will be fine. I promise you, we got up at 6. By 9:30, we're in our beds in Lund. You try that here. You try that here. And for the first time in my life, I understood what a Schengen visa is. Free movement of people. Huh? And I said, why can't we do it? You try to move from Uganda through Kenya to Dar es Salaam and then come back to sleep in your bed at night. But we are all the same people. That's what we say. We come from the same heritage. You know, these Europeans are not the same, by the way. They come from different ethnic groupings. Even their language is not the same. But for us, we all speak Kiswahili. But you can spend about 5 hours at a border. Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? How long are you going to be there? Well,